wana mitumbu tu, kwa sababu ndio kitu ambacho wameweza kukipata kwa hali duni ya maisha walionayo. Kwa hiyo mimi naweza kumwelezea ndugu yetu Martin, chairman mpya, aweze kuangalia wavuvi wapate boat ya kuweza kuingia ndani kabisa kutoa samaki. Jambo lingine ambalo nataka nimwelezee, nilikuwa naangalia document. Hakika kuwa China wanavua samaki zetu kwa wingi sana kule deep sea. Na ni sehemu ambayo iko katika anga za Kenya. Ni sehemu ambayo iko katika taifa la Kenya. Mimi nataka nimwelezee ndugu yetu Martin ambaye ndio chairman, aweze kufuatilia na serikali kuhakikisha kuwa Wakenya sehemu yetu ya kuvua samaki tuvue sisi wenyewe, tuweze kuuza sisi wenyewe samaki zetu hapa ndani Kenya na kule nje. Manake Mchina anavua katika anga zetu sisi, anatoa samaki kwa wingi sana, kisha anakuja na tuuzia sisi. Mimi nitajiuliza tu swali, kama si ujinga ni kitu gani? Mtu aje shambani kwako, avune mazao yako, aje kuuzie wewe kwa bei ghali, na wewe ukae umenyamaza. Ni wakati serikali ichukue hatua, tuangalie kuwa kama vile Wachina kwao wanatoa ulinzi katika anga zao, na sisi anga zetu za Kenya ziweze kulindwa. Wavuvi wetu wamekuwa maskini miaka mingi. Ni wakati sasa wavuvi waweze kutambulika katika taifa hili, wapewe sehemu yao kama inavyohitajika, ili tuweze kuona uchumi wa Kenya ukipanda juu. Jambo la pili, ningependa kuelezea kuwa samaki inaliwa na watu wengi sana. Wengi sasa utapata unakimbia nyama kwa sababu ya madhara ambayo inakuja na nyama. Lakini hata ukienda hospitali daktari anakuambia white meat. Sisi tuna samaki. Na nataka tuenzi samaki kama vile mataifa mengine yanavyoenzi samaki. Natembea katika supermarket zetu nyingi sana. Nikiangalia wanauza samaki kutoka katika ziwa Victoria ambao ni maji baridi. Mimi ningeomba waweze pia kuuza samaki kutoka maji ya chumvi, ili tuweze kuinua uchumi wa wavuvi wetu wote wa kutoka pwani na wa kutoka bara. Na mimi nataka nishukuru, nimeona supermarket moja juzi nikitembea katika pitapita zangu, nikaona wameweka samaki zote za bara na za pwani, ambaye ni hii supermarket ya K4. Mimi nawashukuru sana kwa sababu wameweza kutoa mfano mzuri. Tusiuze tu samaki ya kutoka ziwani peke yake, tuangalie pia na samaki ya bahari, ili tuweze kuboresha ile soko la samaki. Jambo lingine ambalo nataka kuzungumzia, Mheshimiwa Spika, sehemu ya kuweza kuhifadhi samaki imekuwa pia donda sugu kwa wavuvi wetu. Wanavua samaki nyingi, lakini zile cold room, mahali pa kuweka baridi samaki, imekuwa ni kesho utakuwa samaki umeharibika na watoto wangu hawatopata chakula. Namuomba pia chairman mpya wa management unit wanaweza kupewa sehemu pale kando ya bahari, kando na sehemu zingine za soko. Soko la samaki ni muhimu sana katika taifa hili. Na ukiangalia kule Kisauni, wavuvi wengi kwenda kununua. Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo lingine ambalo nilikuwa nataka kusema ni kuwa tuangalia pia sehemu viwanda vya samaki. Toka tuelezewe vyajengwa, hatuoni vikimalizwa. Serikali imekuwa na uvivu sana katika biashara ya samaki. Kwa kweli ukiangalia hata ile ambayo yajengwa pale Liwatoni bado haijamalizwa. Kuna nyingine ambayo iko Malindi, kuna moja ambayo iko Ngomeni kule Magarini, na zingine. Mimi ningeomba wapatie kipaumbele soko la samaki, waweze kujenga industry na factories ambazo tutaweza sisi kupeleka samaki wetu, tuweze kufanya packaging, samaki wa mikebe kama tuna na wengine. Manake ukitembea katika supermarkets utapata kuwa tunapata tuna kutoka India, tunapata tuna kutoka China, tunapata tuna kutoka hata mataifa jirani, wakati ambapo sisi Kenya tuna wetu hapa, tuna ngege, tuna ile mbuta, tuna samaki kila aina ambao ni samaki tamu sana. Kwa hiyo mimi ningependa kuelezea kuwa waweze kuboresha soko la samaki, kwa sababu yeye mwenyewe ameingia katika kufanya marketing. ahakikishe kuwa samaki zetu wanazipa soko ambayo ni soko italeta mazao hapa Kenya, itainua uchumi wa Kenya. Jambo lingine, Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nilikuwa nataka kuzungumzia mambo ya sanitation ama mambo ya usafi katika bahari zetu. Meli nyingi zitapita zikimwaya pengine oil, zikimwaya mafuta ya gari ya meli, unapata kuwa pengine wanatupa taka pale baharini. Hii inaweza kuregesha soko ya samaki nyuma, kwa sababu samaki wengi wanakufa baharini. Ndio maana mheshimiwa mmoja amesema siku hizi utapata samaki wengi wamekufa lakini wako kando ya bahari. Imetendeka pia Mombasa, imetendeka na sehemu nyingine. Ni jambo ambalo linatupatia wasiwasi sisi kama wabunge kuona kuwa samaki wengi, na wale ambao wamekufa huwezi kutumia kwa sababu hatujui wamekufa kwa sababu wamekula sumu ama wamekufa pale kwa sababu ya kitu gani. Kwa hiyo sisi tunaomba pia waweze kuboresha beach zetu kuhakikisha ni safi. Waweza kuwekewa hawa wavuvi wa samaki mahali pa kwenda choo, mahali pasafi. Waweze kuwapatia mavazi safi, mavazi mazuri ya kuweza kuwakinga na baridi kule baharini. Waweze kuangalia meli kubwa ambayo itaingia deep sea iweze kutoa samaki, tuweze kupata samaki zetu kwa wingi. Mheshimiwa Spika, naona muda unami, lakini nasema vifo baharini pia vimekuwa vingi. Tuangalie pia hawa wavuvi wetu wanapata enough training ya kuweza kujimudu, na wakiwa baharini wajue wakaweza kutetea maisha yao namna gani. Kwa hayo, asante Spika, na mimi napongeza sana hii.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Mimi pia nataka kuungana na wenzangu katika kumpongeza Mheshimiwa Martin Ogindo, kwa sababu mimi ninaizungumza hapa nafahamu Mheshimiwa alifanya kazi na yeye, kwa sababu amekuwa katika bunge hili. Leo hii katika kuchaguliwa katika Kenya Fish Marketing Authority, ambayo hii ni bodi ama ya kuweza kutafuta soko ya hawa samaki wetu. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka kuchukua fursa hii kusema tunatoka kule Mombasa, na Mombasa kuna wavuvi wengi sana ambao wanavua, lakini shida kubwa tunaangalia katika biashara. Mheshimiwa Spika, huwezi kufanya biashara ikiwa huwezi kufanya proper marketing ama kuona kwa mauzo ya ile biashara waweza kuifanya namna gani. Na nikisema hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, Mheshimiwa Martin ambaye amechaguliwa mwenyekiti yuko na kazi kubwa sana ya kufanya, kwa sababu hawa wafanyi biashara wa samaki wana changamoto nyingi sana. Mfano moja tukiangalia ni vifaa ambavyo hawana. Leo huwezi kufanya marketing ama huwezi kufanya mauzo ya samaki ikiwa hujapata samaki, na samaki kuwapata huwezi kupata hao samaki ikiwa huna vifaa bora. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka kusema kuwa Mheshimiwa Martin ambaye ni mwenyekiti wa bodi hii ni lazima aone kuwa ameweza kuwafanyia nguvu hawa wavuvi wa samaki kuweza kupata vifaa vizuri vya kuvulia samaki. Pia vile vile Mheshimiwa Spika, kitu ambacho nataka kusema ni kwa kuwa kuna wavuvi wengi sana kule nyanjani. Mfano mimi nikiangazia katika sehemu yangu, kuna wavuvi pale Mkupe, kuna wavuvi pale Jomvu Mission, kuna wavuvi Jomvu Kuu, kuna wavuvi Mikindani, kuna wavuvi Kibarani, kuna wavuvi Likoni. Hawa wavuvi wote ni muhimu sana katika hii bodi, wawe wanaweza kuwatambua ili kuona kuwa wanaweza kuwainua katika biashara yao, katika kuwatafutia market, ili wakivua isiwe ni ile hali wazungu wanasema hand to mouth, lakini ni lazima wafanye commercial shipping ama ile biashara commercial fishing, yani ile biashara ya ukuzaji wa samaki wa kupata mapato, sio ule wa kuuza kwa nyumba moja hadi nyumba nyingine. Tumeona wanenaji wengine ambao wamezungumza juu ya hawa ndugu zetu wa China ambao wanakwenda deep sea ama ndani kabisa kwa bahari kuweza kuvua. Tukiangalia katika nchi zao, hata hapa Uganda peke yake, tunaona serikali ya Uganda imeweka mikakati kabisa kuona kuwa anga yake haiwezi kuingiliwa. Kwa hivyo na sisi ni muhimu sana katika serikali yetu ya Kenya kuona kuwa hawa wa China wawe wamewekewa sheria, si ati wao sasa wavue samaki kwetu, alafu wakishavua samaki kwetu waje watuuzie sasa sisi ambao wametuvulia samaki tutoe pesa tuweze kununua. Ile ambao wao wanaweza kufanya, watu wetu wa Kenya pia wanaweza kufanya. Kwa hivyo jambo la muhimu ni kuona kuwa hii bodi imeweza kuboresha wavuvi katika sehemu zetu zote, iwe Lake Victoria, iwe kwingine kote kule. Tumeona katika ziwa Victoria ambao wavuvi wengi waliondolewa katika sehemu ambazo walikuwa wakifanya kazi, hivi sasa wako mahali kunaitwa Dunga Beach. Jambo la muhimu ni kuona kuwa marketing ile itoke nje ya Kisumu na sehemu nyingine ambazo wanaweza kuuza mapato yao ili waweze kupata pesa zao. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, jambo la muhimu tu kulingana na wakati na mimi niweze kuachia wenzangu wapate kuchangia, ni kwa kuwa tutampongeza Mheshimiwa Martin pamoja na timu yake yote kuona kuwa waweze kufanya kazi, na pia vile vile wajue kuwa sisi kama wabunge tunaunga mkono, kwa sababu tunamjua Mheshimiwa Martin Ogindo kuwa tajriba yake ya kufanya kazi, tumefanya kazi naye hapa. Mimi nikiwa mjumbe wa Jomvu, hii ni awamu yangu ya 3. Nimechaguliwa kutoka 2013 mpaka leo. Kwa hivyo hali ya Mheshimiwa Martin naijua, na mimi nataka nimwambie kuwa tutaweza kufanya kazi pamoja, kushikana na yeye pamoja katika kuona kuwa tunaboresha mambo yetu ya uvuvi na samaki wetu. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika, na Mungu akubariki, na nakushukuru kwa kunipa hii nafasi ili na mimi kuweza kuchangia. Asante.
Very well. The Honorable Peter Kihungi, if he's not in the House, I will proceed. The Honorable Paul Biego Chesumei. Not being in the House, I'll move to the Honorable Eric Muchangi, Runyenjes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And from the onset, I wish to support the nominee, the Honorable Martin Ogindo. And Mr. Speaker, I wish to start by saying that the fishing industry is a very important industry in this country. And the Honorable Martin, having been a member of Parliament, is a person who is experienced. He's a man who comes from the lakeside. So we believe that he understands the issues that belong to the lakeside, among them the fishing industry. Mr. Speaker, the nominee is very well educated, and we believe that a combination of his experience plus his academic qualifications makes him a very good chairman who will now steer forward the fishing industry as the chairman of the Kenya Fish Marketing Authority. Mr. Speaker, like I have said, that the fishing industry in this country still lies underexploited. And we only have around 0.54% contribution from the fishing industry or economy to the GDP. And this is a percentage that, Mr. Speaker, needs to be improved. Mr. Speaker, the fishing opportunities at the coast still remains underexploited. And we believe that with the nomination of this chairman, we believe that these opportunities at the coast will be exploited to the benefit of this country. And it is important, Mr. Speaker, that the allegations that have been said by one of our colleagues here be investigated, that there are foreigners who come to our deep seas to come and do the fishing and thereafter sell the fish to us, telling us that the fish comes from China. This would be an insult to the people of Kenya when they consume their own fish while still imagining that it is fish coming from China. So, Mr. Speaker, again, I like the comments that were made by my fellow Member of Parliament here, the Honorable Kuria Kimani, about the dams, yeah, when we have the many dams that will be constructed by the Kenya Kwanza government, let there be a component of fishing. And also, Mr. Speaker, I know you see fishing is synonymous with the people coming from the lakeside. The people of Mount Kenya do not take as much fish as those from the lakeside or those from the coast region. What the people from Mount Kenya eat most is ideri, mokimo, and such. So we also would like this and modokoi. I am being reminded. It is important that this chairman also considers marketing these fish across Mount Kenya, so that also the people from Mount Kenya can be accustomed to eating fish, which is a very delicious meal. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I wish to support the appointment of the Honorable Martin Ogindo as chairman of the Kenya Fish Marketing Authority. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Kibet Komingoi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to also support the recommendation of the Committee on the Blue Economy and Mining on appointment of Martin Ogindo. This actually represents the Kenya Kwanza inclusion policy on regional representation, and also the fact that Mr. Ogindo is a competent, skilled, and civil servant, a former member of parliament, whose character would actually fit both as probably as a fisherman himself and also as a commercial enterprise that he's going to run in trying to market the fish and the fish products in this country. Number two, Mr. Speaker, is on the question of protecting our territories and also protecting our resources. The fish resources in this country needs to be protected. It should be remembered that fish is within our seas, our lakes, and also the rivers within this nation. You can remember, Mr. Speaker, the kind of war we always have with Uganda and Migingo in protecting the resources around our lakes. This will be part of the things that would urge Mr. Martin to be able to see to it that our resources are protected. Further to that, Mr. Speaker, is a question of investment in the fishing industry, in value addition, and making sure that our fishermen are well protected, provided with gears, the landing sites being constructed, the storage facilities, and also availing the market, studying the trends in the world to be able to see to it that our fishermen are able to provide what the market needs with the fish products. Further to that also, there should be special focus, should be given to the marginalized areas. In mind, I have Lake Turkana, which has a lot of resources. I also have in mind Lake Baringo and the rivers within our nation, which also provides the fish that needs to be marketed. These regions, we must be able to invest in them. We must be able to provide the facilities and also educate our fishermen and the farmers that are able, so that they may be able to earn from these livelihoods. If we are able to do this and improve all that we require within these regions, we shall be protecting the livelihoods of our people. We also will be providing nutrition to our people, and fishing as an industry will be able to contribute most significantly to the economy of this nation. I think with this, Mr. Speaker, I support this motion and the appointment of Martin Ogindo as the chair of Kenya Fish Marketing Authority. Thank you.
Very well. Next is the Honorable Richard Igon, Bomet East.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity also to weigh in my views on this about this gentleman, Martin Ogindo. Mr. Speaker, this is something which I've also gone through his CV, and I just found out that this gentleman, Martin Ogindo, has got a vast wealth of experience of 20 years, which I know is going to bring on board into this authority of fish. What I wanted to add, Mr. Speaker, is that Mr. Ogindo, coming from the Lakeside region, he must be having a lot of wealth and knowledge about this industry. And again, I want also to put and challenge him by taking up this position that fish is one of the foreign exchange earners of this country. And if we see our neighboring countries like Uganda and Tanzania, personally, I've also been in that business of exporting fish, whereby I saw the fish going out of other countries. The other countries are taking more fish than Kenya. So we want him to get involved and check on all the challenges we are facing in our country to make sure that at least we also reap in the foreign exchange immensely. Again, Mr. Speaker, we have what is going on. I just heard reading from the media that the leader of opposition, Honorable Raila Odinga, want to take us back to the streets from after the Ramadan. And I want to see that, to tell the Luo nation that you must have seen now the Kenya Kwanza coming in and taking one of your own, that we are all inclusive. And this is a way of just trying to unite the country and giving this chance to this gentleman means that Kenya Kwanza doesn't have these issues of saying these people never voted for us or never done this to us. So we want this one as an enticing factor whereby to see Raila Odinga to check and see that we are trying to also support his own people from his area, his backyard. So we want him not to call off these issues of mass action by way of seeing that we are trying as Kenyans wanted to unite the country by appointing all the people from the whole country, from the whole region. So thank you. With all very new remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I support.
The Honorable Mary Emase. Test us out.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. Let me add my voice. And from the onset, I want to support the motion on the appointment of the nominee to the Kenya Fish Marketing Authority. Mr. Speaker, I do not know the nominee personally, but listening to my colleagues and the compliments that they have said about this nominee, and reading the report and seeing the kind of qualifications that the nominee possesses, I am convinced that the nominee has got the capacity to actually undertake the task ahead of him, and therefore we have faith that he'll be able to deliver in that particular portfolio. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I want to say that Mr. Martin has been nominated to a sector that has got immense opportunities, a sector that can create a lot of employment opportunities for the youth and the fishermen of this country. Mr. Speaker, I just want to appeal to the nominee that once he takes office, it is important that he puts mechanisms in place to fully exploit the agro-based maritime resources within that sector. Mr. Speaker, also this sector is a sector that has been faced by a lot of challenges, some of them which have been mentioned, I will not repeat. But I want to point one case on Lake Victoria. We've had a number of our fishermen being arrested by the neighboring country because of the issue of the boundary between Kenya and this particular neighboring country. And I want to appeal to him to work closely with the Ministry of Interior and ensure that he finds a lasting solution to this particular challenge. Mr. Speaker, this particular sector on blue economy and fisheries is also a sector that can earn this country a lot of foreign exchange. So again, on that front, there is need for the nominee to ensure that he's got a robust research and development sector within that particular sector, so that we have value addition and therefore even be able to export some of our fish to other countries out there. Mr. Speaker, there is also a need for him to make sure that he builds partnerships. He builds technical partnerships, cooperation with other partner states, like Seychelles, for example, countries that have advanced technology in fishing and processing of the fish, so that we can benefit through such kind of engagements. Mr. Speaker, fishing is also not limited only to the oceans, to the coastal region, or to the lake regions. We have small farmers across the country who have dug their own dams and are practicing farming within the comfort of their homes. I would also want to plead with the nominee to ensure that he reaches out to these small fish farmers within the mainland and all other parts of this country. And he gives them capacity building, and he also helps them find a market for their fish. By so doing, Mr. Speaker, I believe that this is a sector that will be able to generate a lot of foreign exchange and also boost the economy by creating employment opportunities for the people of this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. I support.
Very well, House Leadership, the Honorable Naomi Wako.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to add my voice to this very important motion of nomination of Honorable Martin Oginde, as I also congratulate him and also the committee that has sat and compiled this great report for us. Mr. Speaker, I have gone through the report. I have seen that Honorable Martin is qualified and is well experienced, and I have a lot of faith in him that he will bring the necessary growth and transformation in that sector. And putting into consideration that blue economy is the future of our country, I would want to urge Honorable Martin to give attention to some few points that I will raise so that we grow this sector to its full capacity. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that Kenya has resources spread over an area of 245,000 kilometers square, or 42% of its total land area, which makes our country maritime state. That is a gift that God has given us that we need to utilize well and also earn our living from it. If we give a lot of attention and if the government invests a lot in this, then we will be able to get good income from it, because we know that giving it attention, investing enough, will create more jobs for our people. Especially now that we know that a lot of our young people are jobless and we are encountering a lot of problems because they are not occupied most of the time. This will also help us to spur our economy and also take care of our food security. That is why we need to invest in blue economy as a country, and especially now when we have many investors also who are interested in investing in our country. Mr. Speaker, we know that in the past we have not done well in investing in this area, but this is the time that as a country and as a Kenya Kwanza government, we need to give it all the attention that this sector deserves so that we can gain all that we need to gain from it. In 2018, the then Agriculture CS Mwangi Kiunjuri said Kenya was losing over 440 billion annually by failing to fully exploit the blue economy. I don't think that we have changed that situation even to date. And that is why we need to invest so that the 440 billion that the then CS, who is today a member of parliament in this honorable house with us, said that we were losing on annual basis 440 billion is a lot of money that can take care of our economy. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that this country has a lot of opportunity. And as I said, especially when it comes to job employment, I want to urge the nominated the CEO, the nominated chair, to give it the face of the country. Because where I come from, we are not associated with fish. We are known as people who love goat meat, cow meat, and all these others. But when it comes to fish, even in employment, many times we are not considered. And so I want to request that that sector, the blue economy sector, be considerate enough to give us the face of the country when it comes to employment. I also want to talk about the fishermen and women. In 12th Parliament, I was in Senate and I was in Agriculture Committee. And we visited some of our lakes. And the people who are there, the fishermen and women, shared with us the challenges they go through. Mr. Speaker, it is evident that they have been exploited in the past. Women have been sexually harassed, and some of them confessed to us that today they are HIV positive as a result of exploitation while they are doing their job. Some of them are single mothers, they have no money, they have nothing else to depend on. And when it comes to marketing, there are people who take advantage and exploit them. And so special attention should be given to the poor man, poor woman who sit there and working very hard for people to be able to do business around there, so that we can protect the interest of every Kenyan and also make sure that they gain what they are supposed to gain. Again, I would want to touch on the other farmers and the other parts of the country. Now that as a country and as a government, we are giving a lot of attention to farming and promoting local businesses, I would want to urge the blue economy and the chair now and the other people concerned to make sure that they encourage almost every household to have fish pots, so that they can be able to take care of their families, so that it becomes part of the entire country, and we all, be proud of our own product and make sure that we also take care of our health. As we also know that fish is very healthy. Many people, when they grow up, as long as you have gotten to the age of 40 or 50, you are advised to avoid red meat. And that means that fish is what we all need to have, and fish is what will sustain each one of us. Mr. Speaker, again, when it comes to fish, we know very well that the drought or the seasons that we go through may not have negative impact on the fish. As somebody said, you may not need any medicine, you may not need to feed, you may not, nothing will interfere as long as there is water, enough water. And so we need to focus more so that we encourage every citizen to invest in fish farming so that we can take care of our health, we can take care of our economy, and it becomes part of our lifestyle so that we improve on every area. Mr. Speaker, as I finish, I want to say that as a country, we need to take advantage of the many investors, especially at the moment, and those who are eyeing blue economy. Lake Turkana is close to where I come from, and we have a lot of opportunities there. Let us focus on the entire country and the opportunities that are there for us so that we invest a lot, and then we also create our own wealth from the resources that God has given us. With those few remarks, I support and congratulate the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, the Honorable Rindikiri Mugambi, and thank you for being patient.
Thank you. I was almost giving up, Mr. Speaker. But I want to thank you for this opportunity. I also want to thank the committee led by my friend, Mr. Bowen. First, on the outset, Mr. Speaker, I support the candidature and the appointment of our former colleague, Martin Otieno Ogido. He has already presented his credentials, which we have no questions about, and he has also given us his experience, which as a member of parliament, as an employee, and as a businessman, he qualifies for the position. Mr. Speaker, the fishing industry contributes about 0.5% of our national GDP and about 2% of national export earnings. This is not a simple economy, but what we all know is that it has a very high potential. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we're looking forward as Otieno takes up this responsibility of heading the marketing authority for fish. We hope and believe that practically he shall do what this job entails. But based on his commitment and the Kenya Kwanza expectations, he is going to be the best candidate. Mr. Speaker, the blue economy touches so many sectors of our country. Tourism, the fish processing, manufacturing, and the value addition. There is sports associated with fish. There is employment and foreign exchange earner. So, Mr. Speaker, we are not talking about a very small industry. The only difference is that in the past, it was not given any prominence, but now the Kenya Kwanza government has picked blue economy as one of the sectors that need to be matured and promoted. Mr. Speaker, I know there are so many things that need to be done in this industry, and that's what we expect Martin and his associate shall fulfill. Mr. Speaker, I have observed that there is a basic education and training that takes place concerning fishing. But I think the time has come that we academically promote the teaching of the fishing and related. Mr. Speaker, I note that there is a production of different types of fishes. Now, we have to look at this very critically because, as I said, the benefit will be determined by the kind of activities that we expect from the production. Mr. Speaker, storage is a serious challenge. And at this point, I want to state to the members' benefit that I'm started practicing fish. And the famous trout fish that was mentioned here, I have started practicing it, and I bought a next to Kenya Trout Farm, which is owned by the former president, Mr. Mwai Kibaki. My son, my constituency, is known for that fish. So I'm authoritatively speaking that we have a product that can earn this country a lot of money. We call it a wild fish because its behavior is not the normal fish. So when we're talking about production, we must start focusing on the kind of fish that is going to be of high value, either on export or even consumption. Mr. Speaker, the challenge faced by many of farmers is transportation and storage. And I think, because when you talk of marketing, you have to transport fish. So I hope the first thing that Martin and his team need to invest in, either directly or indirectly, is the transport and storage of fish. Mr. Speaker, we know Kenya is not isolated in terms of fish industry, and I think the team of Martin need to focus on international markets because they are but they should determine on the quality of fish and the type of fish that we shall produce. Remember, the international agreement that affect the trade of fish. So we cannot only talk about the local market, we should also talk about international market, and this is where now we expect Martin and the chairman of the authority to spend a lot of time bringing in a lot of investors to come and invest in the fish industry in Kenya. But we know the government itself, even if we are faced with challenges of revenue, still we can put a bit of money in this sector, and I'm asking the committee to consider spending a lot of money here, because we have a potential of an industry that is going to grow, particularly to create employment, to create infrastructure development, to bring in tourism. Mr. Speaker, this is an alternative sector of our economy. And therefore, I'm asking, we are seeing a lot of conflict between communities, particularly in Baringo, and I hope I'm not going to be a victim of Kamket and the Baringo factor. I'm saying we need to start now inculcating to our communities that there is an alternative way of farming and earning income other than fighting for the limited resources of pasture. And I want to recommend fish farming in Baringo, seriously. I want to recommend fish farming in West Pokot, very seriously. I also want to commend a lot of fish farming between my neighbors, Isiolo and Laikipia, so that now we don't start competing on the limited resources in terms of lanes. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the committee to consider recommending to our budget committee, and I can see the chair here, to allocate money for each primary school and secondary school to put up a fish fund, which will be both for teaching and the production of fish for our children. I think this will add value to the feeding program for our children. And I think, allowably, I will ask the members at one point in time that we consider the CDF for construction of a fish pond for each of our learning institutions, particular primary schools, and also secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, I would like that as we move on, in order to increase product feeding of fish. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, one of the challenges are not advantaged to have lakes and oceans in Mount Kenya region and the inland in general. We are faced with a challenge because we have to buy artificial feed, feeding product for our fish. Mr. Speaker, I think to that, I know our candidate who have been presented by His Excellency the President, Honorable Martin Ogindo, is capable of taking this challenge and making this sector a reality to the expectation of Kenya Kwanza, our plan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the Honorable Ndindi Nyoro, MP Kiharu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. For this
Order, member. Following the preferences for members who have also been in the House for quite some time. So you may proceed, Honorable Ndindi Nyoro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. First of all, I want to laud the committee that sat down and considered what we are debating today. And also I wish to congratulate the chairman, the Honorable Martin Ogindo, for this very important appointment. Mr. Speaker, sometimes when people serve in politics the way we do, there is usually a misconception out there that possibly politicians have no capacity to be professionals. But Mr. Speaker, the cycle is that, and the truth is that, even before people join even this house or any other house or leadership role that is based in politics, These people, Mr. Speaker, majority of them are already qualified professionals, and they come actually almost seconded from the other areas that they previously served. And therefore, it is very refreshing to see a former now taking the reins in this very important board of taking care of the marketing of the fish and fish products in this country. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the issue before us is one of food security, one. Number two, that of economy. And number three, that of nutrition. Because, Mr. Speaker, even as we talk about food security, sometimes we forget to align that food security with nutrition, because they should always go hand in hand. Food security is not just having a full stomach. It is also in the composition of what makes the stomach full. And, Mr. Speaker, fish is one of the premium products that we actually consume. It is important that we consider nutrition, but also more importantly, that the activity itself, Mr. Speaker, is an economic activity and a premium economic activity for that matter. Mr. Speaker, globally, the industry of fish is a huge one, valued at approximately $268 billion US dollars. Mr. Speaker, this is more than double the size of the Kenyan economy. The fish industry in the world is in itself bigger than the entire GDP of our country multiplied by 2. This, Mr. Speaker, shows how important this is in the economic sense, and the more the reason that we should be having bodies that look after that very important activity. Mr. Speaker, even talking about the membership itself that we are considering, I have gone through the CV of the people who have been proposed to serve in this marketing board, Mr. Speaker, and it's enviable. The chairman has got a master's in science, Mr. Speaker, from the University of Nairobi, and also having also acquired a an undergraduate, Mr. Speaker. And even the membership itself, these are very competent people that will be leading this important enterprise. Mr. Speaker, however, sometimes we get it wrong. When we talk about fishing, sometimes it is, we are misled to think that fish only comes from lakes and oceans. But, Mr. Speaker, looking at the data, even from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, some of the counties that are very unlikely to produce fish are actually the highest producers of fish. Counties like Kakamega is very high. Mr. Speaker, county of Nyeri, where the member for Mukureni, who is seated just near, next to me, is actually top 7, including my county of Muranga, because aquaculture is also a huge segment within agriculture that produces fish. And in terms of fish pots, Mr. Speaker, and production of fish, unbeknown to many who may think probably that the areas around Mount Kenya, which is the mountain, that they rely on fish from the other areas, Mr. Speaker. Fish is produced across the country, from the western side to the Mount Kenya side, Mr. Speaker, and this is important, and especially as an economic activity and also as a source of quality food, Mr. Speaker, in terms of enhancing nutrition. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about fishing, and especially that which happens in oceans, sometimes, Mr. Speaker, this is a boundary issue. And that is why even within the areas that are Kenyan, we have seen a proliferation of other bigger world economies and consumers of fish, and specifically our friends, Mr. Speaker, in East Asia, and Mr. Speaker, others also from Europe, who are already doing massive fishing in our areas, Mr. Speaker. And I think it behoves a multi-agency kind of approach from the Coast Guard to the Kenya Maritime Authority, also to this board that has been created, that we make sure that we safeguard the resources that we have. Fish, Mr. Speaker, to my understanding, is equivalent to offshore kind of minerals. Mr. Speaker, from where I sit, whereas we go to fishing, Mr. Speaker, the kind of value we get from it is actually even much more than offshore mining. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is important that we safeguard our wealth, because wealth should be there to provide revenue and not just a source of assets. In an economy, an asset doesn't count much. What counts is what you derive from the asset. And since these assets are already ours, we should safeguard and derive enough revenues from them. As I finish, Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about something we were discussing with the chairman, Mr. Honorable Bowen Kagongo, about the fact that this board we are creating, and Mr. Speaker, this is on the basis that whereas I support the content, the singular content in what we are debating, I totally disagree and departure from that support in terms of the global approach. The reason being, Mr. Speaker, from where we sit, and especially in the budget committee, we have been doing a huge investment, capital investments in terms of fish landing sites, in terms of value addition of whatever we get from fishing, capital investments that are going towards helping our country and our economy and fisher folks, Mr. Speaker. The departure I am bringing forth is a departure that is global and a trend in our economy, where we are having a government that is only able to raise money to oil and sustain the same government. We are creating way too many bodies. We are creating too many regulatory authorities, too many, Mr. Speaker, boards that may not necessarily add any value in the sectors they are domiciled. It is important to bring to this House, Mr. Speaker, that the board we are talking about today, with a membership of close to 10, Mr. Speaker, this board is oversighting one staff. This board only has got one staff, and that staff is acting and not actually employed by the board, but seconded by the Kenya Cooperative Creameries, Mr. Speaker. We have gone to other sectors. A sector like, for example, scrap metal. Mr. Speaker, with a membership of 9, Kenya's Scrap Metal Authority, Mr. Speaker, Council, has got only one staff also, seconded from the ministry. And Mr. Speaker, that is why we are a bit more stringent in how we look at money bills also. We cannot continue to create an authority, a body, after every other product. Because the head of this, Mr. Speaker, is that we become a more regulated government. We have a government that plays a very huge role in the economy. And for an economy to be efficient, it is the private sector who should be marketing this. It is the private sector who are already there and making money, Mr. Speaker, who should be taking the lead role. And Mr. Speaker, this is something we must interrogate as this House. Currently, the government of Kenya has got
Okay, you know, he should have begun with this. Add him 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, this government and our country, as a country, number one, as a republic, a nation and a state, we are failing in regards to Kenya as a state, because we are becoming a very overregulated economy, Mr. Speaker. We have got 334 SAGAs, SOEs, authorities, Mr. Speaker, regulatory authorities, and tribunals. If you look at this, Mr. Speaker, majority of these bodies, authorities, duplicate their roles. We need as this House to be very critical, Mr. Speaker, going forward, that we downscale these 334 or so, because majority of them actually only serve the egos of the people who occupy positions, other than rendering quality service to the Kenyan people, and especially in the sectors they are domiciled. And I hope in the fullness of time, we are going to face this issue head-on, so that we do not have an overburdened country in terms of recurrence, and channel most of our resources in production, Mr. Speaker, in quality regulation, other than over excessive regulation. The government should serve the private sector, not do what the private sector should do. Mr. Speaker, I submit.
Very well. you can also have a chance of bringing a substantive bill that relates to the matter that you have addressed lastly, which is of great importance to this country. Next, let's have the MP for Sotik, Honorable Francis Sige.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to also support the motion. And on the onset,